Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Maximum warp. Punch it. Punch it.
Punch it, Bishop!
Punch it.
Punch that shit!
Let's punch it.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Punch It, writing in Star Trek. My name is Charlene Schmidt, and with me, as always, is...
Tristan Riddell.
Tristan, how the heck are you, buddy?
I'm doing better now that we're podcasting it together because it's always a fun time. And there's something that I want to tell you about before I forget. So, long time ago, back in the day, there was a comic book series done by Marvel called What If?
Oh, no kidding.
What they would do is, I loved it when I was a kid because that was always one of my favorite things about comic books is because you had so many different storylines, you had so many different universes, but specifically with the What If storylines, they would have stuff like, what if Captain America never went missing during World War II? You know, what would that look like? Or like, what if somebody else got irradiated with like the Hulk other than Bruce Banner? You know, like what would that look like at that time? Or like, and so it was a way to let the fanboys calm down and just postulate for a little bit, like, what would this look like? You don't have to worry about canon or continuity or anything like that. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because Disney is coming out with their own streaming service, and they just greenlit a special anthology TV show devoted to what-if scenarios within the Marvel Universe.
Oh, hey, cool. And relating this to Punch It, I've said a couple times, I think, off mic and maybe through text, we probably should have called this show What If, because that is something that we've been doing a lot of lately.
And we absolutely love it. We love doing what-if stories. It's one of our favorite things to do on this show, and that is exactly why I brought it up. But today isn't necessarily a what-if. This is more of a, what would you call it?
I don't know, maybe... Instead of a what if, I don't know if it's really a switcheroo because we're not switching with anybody, but what we are doing is we are taking, well, I'm actually pretty jazzed about what we're doing because we've not really touched on Discovery at all on this show as a main topic. We've talked about it at the start of the show, but we are actually going to play with the Discovery characters today. We're going to take story threads of the Discovery characters and see if we can put them on other characters in other shows in the Star Trek franchise.
Yeah, that involves like maybe a little bit of character motivations, character backstories, as well as plot lines and storylines and things like that, like how those work in TNG or Deep Space Nine or Voyager, Enterprise, original series, or in the movies and things like that. How would that all fit in the Star Trek universe if Discovery didn't exist, but we wanted to use those plot lines? But before we get into that, we have a 5-star review, don't we?
We do. So hooray, hurrah. Thank you for writing this review. The person's username is I, and this is a UK person. So thank you very much for taking the time. And this person says, love this show being punched into my feed every week. So many other podcasts try and match the storytelling and chemistry of Tristan and Char when it comes to Trek, but these guys are the original and the best. How about that, man? I'm feeling good now.
That's a great review. I think... If I'm remembering correctly, I think this individual wrote a review on Nerd Nuptial as well.
Oh, cool. So this person listens to Nerd Party podcasts.
Yes, thank you so much, listener, for enjoying multiple Nerd Party podcasts, and which is something that all of you guys should be doing. Because if you like what we're doing, if you like what we're talking about, and you like Star Trek or something else in fandom and geek culture and everything like that, please go to thenerdparty.com because we have so many cool shows with so many great hosts giving you content in Star Trek, Star Wars, Harry Potter, film, television, Doctor Who, so many different types of fandom and different types of hosts, and it's really great. I really like our network, and so I really want you guys to explore.
Yeah, it's good stuff all around. I love our diversity. The fact that we have this family of podcasts that cover so many different aspects of pop culture. And I want to give a special shout out to Lee and Dallas on both Filibuster and A24 Project. They're just killing it, man, with their interviews and whatnot. They're great.
they're getting some really, really great interviews because what these guys are doing, and I want to echo what Shar just said, like really check out Filibuster or the A24 Project or both, because what they do is they'll go to film festivals and they will get interviews with directors and actors. Like I think their latest big interview was with Bo Burnham, who is a stand-up comic who then became a director of the movie Eighth Grade. And it's just, I mean, the fact that they're able to get these interviews and be as professional as they are in this kind of world is fantastic. And we really do value the talent that they bring to the table. So everyone should check it out.
Most definitely. They're fantastic interviewers, really good stuff. And so just a little extra shout out for them, because that's a part of the Nerd Party that a lot of us don't really dip our toes into. We're not seeking interviews, but they do such a great job. And there are folks over in the UK.
Absolutely. And I'll speaking of the UK, like in speaking of Time and Space, which is our Doctor Who show, they travel to London. They go to conventions. They're a couple, and so they're experiencing all these things together, and they share those experiences on their show while talking about Doctor Who, and it's just a great way to share their experiences via podcast and as well as their expertise.
That's right. And speaking of which, yours truly was on the most recent show talking about the first time I'm watching the 2005 reboot of Doctor Who. I'm going through it, and so I'm giving that first-timer's perspective because the only other Doctor Who I've watched so far is the 13th and latest Doctor. So,
oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, I'm just starting to get into the fandom, and it's all Philip's fault. And I got to meet up with him and his wife, Jessica, who hosts Time and Space, last month, and it was a blast. We had a good time. So check that out if you're into Doctor Who.
All right.
Let's talk about our show.
Let's do that. Let's get back to Star Trek.
Star Trek. So, in terms of Discovery characters, I feel like the first and best place to start is Michael Burnham.
So, with Michael...
Why did you just say it like that?
I don't know. I don't know, but it felt appropriate. Like it felt like I was thinking about Michael. Michael. So
it's Dr. Evil.
With Michael, I feel like there's a few things that are very, very Michael. Like, okay, raised by Vulcans, but not Vulcan. Mm-hmm. And a mutineer.
That was the first thing I thought of is, could we translate that to another character and would it work or not?
And I don't think we necessarily have to take both things into another character. Or how about this? Let's take it from two fronts. Let's find a show where Michael the individual, like Michael exists as Michael.
Uh-huh. Put her on the show.
What other show would she fit in? And then let's also say, like, okay, if we didn't want to take that character, what characteristics of that could we apply to somebody else?
Digging it. Let's go for that. So part one, if we're going to insert Michael Burnham onto a series, which one would it be?
I feel like TOS, I think, would be a little too, like, because you would need something with continuity in order to have those kind of characteristics.
It's a little too close to Discovery. I kind of don't want to go for TOS. Would Enterprise be an interesting dynamic just because of the relationship with Vulcans at that point? I mean, that'd be some serious retconning. I don't know about that.
I don't know, because also when you think about the mutineering, like Starfleet didn't even exist yet.
Right. Okay. Also, a mutiny would be far more controversial in the 24th century.
So I think that's where it probably would need to lie. Like TNG, Deep Space Nine, Voyager. I'm going to say it would be like, TNG would be too weird, I think.
Yeah, I have a hard time envisioning how that would work just because, and forgive me, people are so compliant on the Enterprise D.
It's true.
Nobody's going to betray Jean-Luc Picard. But what about on Voyager? What if Michael Burnham was a member of the Maquis? She and Seska start teaming up and they try to recruit B'Elanna into staging a mutiny.
Oh, so you're okay. My brain went to a little bit different place. So like this would be Michael Burnham post mutiny. I feel like she would be on. I'd say she would kind of be like a Paris character, maybe even replace Paris, where she was a mutineer. Like say that she mutinied on some ship, and then she had jail time, she spent her jail time, or maybe got out for some reason, or maybe the Maquis broke her out, or maybe she was a part of something where she did break out, and the Maquis took her in because she had nowhere else to go because she was cashiered out of cashiered. Thank
That's
you.
what
Cashiered.
that's what Tommy
wrong.
said.
Out of Starfleet, and then she winds up in the Delta Quadrant because she becomes a part of Chakotay's ship, and so that's where we have to deal with the character where people know who she is. Like, it's not just like, oh, I heard about
Right.
what Tom did. It's like, no, everybody knows Michael Burnham. Everybody knows that she's the mutineer. And so
that reputation.
and so she's the one who has the reputation, and no one wants to get close to her except maybe one person, and maybe like Tuvok. Like, she tries to strike up a relationship, a friendship, a working relationship with Tuvok, and like he tries to help her get readjusted, but there's that friction. I very much see that happening at Voyager instead of a mutiny happening on Voyager because of Michael Burnham.
Okay, yeah, I definitely see why your mind went there first. It would also be really cool to see that dynamic between Michael and Tuvok, since she was raised by Vulcans, reaching out to the only, well, not the only other Vulcan on the ship, but the most prominent, highest ranking Vulcan on the ship. There is Vorik, but maybe she doesn't care about him.
I would love to see a relationship build where it's more antagonistic at first, where Tuvok, he is a Vulcan, and so they have that connection, but at the same time, because he is a tactical and security officer, the idea of disobeying your captain and getting them killed and starting a war is so repugnant to him. Now, obviously, what I just said is repugnant to anybody, but specifically to Tuvok, he wants nothing to do with her. And maybe Janeway is the one who kind of goes to Tuvok and says, maybe you need to lighten up a little bit. We're going to be working together for a long time.
I kind of like that. Yeah. Totally see how that could happen. I also like the idea of just her replacing Tom Paris.
I think for our part 2, I think it would just be, we would mold that onto Paris, I think.
So really, I mean, his crime might have been a little heavier with a mutiny on his hands. But I love the idea, like the bad reputation still becomes friends with Harry, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that does seem like the easiest translation. And then, of course, if you have higher tensions with the Maquis, what side is Michael going to take? Because you immediately think, oh, you mutinied, you're going to be the rebel. You're going to go with the Rebel Alliance, basically. Or are you?
Right.
Yeah.
I think that would make it very interesting. And I think the only thing that wouldn't work with Tom, like grafting that on, is the Vulcan thing, like being raised by Vulcans, unless like he was a foster child with Vulcans and got out as soon as he turned 16 or 18, and he was just like, oh my god, like I could not stand Vulcan, like
Yeah,
that is
F
so
this.
not me.
Yeah, maybe Michael/Tom got emancipated or something.
Yes, I could totally see that happening, where like his personality totally didn't change. He's still Tom Paris.
Could not
even
handle the bull
Vulcans
haircut. Just like, no, none of this. Sorry.
Nope.
Thanks, but no thanks.
I could totally see that happening.
Me too. That's great. Okay, how about another character? What about Saru? Now, Saru, being a Kelpian, the first time we're seeing Kelpians on a Star Trek show, we don't completely know the reasons for that necessarily at this point.
Well,
But we could just
we
go in
do.
with the assumption that, you know what? They've always been around.
Well, I think, I guess, okay. Like, I guess before a couple of episodes ago, we knew is because they were a pre-warp civilization.
Right.
And that's why we never saw them. But now, after one of the most recent episodes, they're not pre-warp. I mean, they're still pre-warp because they don't have the technology. But anyway, it's a muddled situation. I think there's plenty of species out there that don't get mentioned because there's only so much time, and like there's over 100 worlds within the Federation, and it's not like we know every single species within those 100 worlds.
True. I mean, that's the logical explanation, sure.
And so I think that right there is fine for not knowing. But like, I love the idea of Saru being the only of his species. I think he would make a great Worf stand-in on TNG.
Okay, do tell.
Because if I needed to graft, I'm going to go with graft first
Okay.
instead of placing Saru somewhere. I think if we were going to graft some characteristics, it would be on would be with Worf, because you already have he's the first member of his species in Starfleet, just like Saru and the Kelpians.
Uh-huh.
His sibling and parental situation is totally weird, just like
True.
Saru.
Good point.
And so I feel like you could keep Worf how he is, except change the species of, instead of making him Klingon, he is whether it's a Kelpian or somebody else, like he is an alien that is from a pre-warp civilization. You can keep everything else the same, except him being raised by humans, and say, like, keep his station the same, and say, like, okay, I am there's a reason why you've never heard of me or seen anybody like me, is because I am special and was recruited by Jean-Luc Picard, or something like that.
And we get that short trek, right, with the Picard series coming out. Yeah.
Where, like, Picard's on the Stargazer or something. He says, like, oh, yeah, you should totally...
That would be
totally
really
join the
cool,
Federation.
actually. For as much as we hear about the Stargazer, we've not seen much of the Stargazer. That would be pretty cool.
So that's my idea for taking his storylines and putting him into a show, would be grafting it onto the Worf character.
That's so good. I can't top that. So let's just say that's what it is.
So where would you put Saru himself? Like, no changing to his character.
I kind of wonder, like, I immediately thought DS9.
Oh,
Fish
yeah.
out of water character, he would be a great fit there. He's got plenty of other characters to interact with. Quark, Odo. Some more relatable than others. Yeah.
I mean, like, he could be best friends with Odo because of their situation. Like, Odo's the only of his kind for a long time, and he doesn't know his heritage.
My question, though, is what position would he serve on the station?
Well, I think because he's Saru, it would have to be science.
But then what about Jadzia?
Well, I feel like...
Where's she gone?
I don't think she's gone. I think it's a big station and there's a lot of research going on, and I never really felt like we needed just one science person, to be the main contact. There's got to be. That's kind of where I'm coming from. It's just like, let Jadzia be science, let Saru be science, and like Jadzia goes when Jadzia's on the Defiant, then Saru's on the station, or vice versa, or they can split the duties and split the research. It's a big station.
That's true. And you bring that up as such a good point. I've never actually thought much about it, but there should be science teams.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the time we just see one or two people working together. I would love it if Jadzia is the head of the science team, but Saru is probably the next person down. And there's many other junior scientists studying the wormhole, for instance.
Yeah, absolutely. And even if we wanted to make them equal seniority, I mean, Jadzia is the bridge officer for the science department, and Saru runs personnel.
There you go.
It's just something like that, or vice versa. Because Jadzia is a little bit more personable, but it's just like something like that is that we can do, because it's just when Jadzia is on the station, in ops all the time. It's not like she can be running reports or like doing personnel, or like making sure that she approves sick time, and it's everything like that. So I feel like there's a lot of stuff to expand. There's a lot of opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I could see Saru kind of running the HR aspect of the science department. And it strikes me that those two would work really well together.
Now, one thing that I want to talk about before we move on to another character is the spore drive.
Okay, do you want to put that on another ship?
I want to say, like, what show would be good to deal with the spore drive? Now, we know, I was really surprised to see them try to use the spore drive again in the last episode, because I thought that we established that was harming the universe.
Right? I was too, a little bit.
I was just like, what is this? What the hell does this mean? Because we know that they're, like, damaging that other realm a great deal.
Yeah, I thought that ultimate conclusion was going to be that that's why we're no longer using spore drives going forward, because of the whole destruction. Yeah, like that's why the spore drive does not exist in the future. Okay, but you're going back on that now? Huh?
Yeah, that was really strange to me, because it makes sense to me. Like, because we all knew that when we started Discovery and they did the spore drive, we're like, well, this is amazing technology, and since this is a prequel, there's going to be an obvious reason as to why they can't use it anymore.
Right.
And I thought that was going to be it. So I guess they're going to make it more plain later on. I'm not quite sure. But regardless, I think let's go with that method of it's damaging, and so we can't do it. We can't put it in Voyager because then they would just get home after one jump.
They'd have to develop it in season 7, ideally the latter half.
Yeah.
Or
And so-
like it's the episode Timeless. And so instead of the what is it? The transwarp. What do they call it? Slipstream. Oh my
Slipstream, yeah.
gosh. So many technical terms. Instead of the slipstream drive, they're doing the spore drive and it fails miserably.
Okay, yeah, I think that's the only way that we'd be able to put it in Voyager. I think that's great.
so.
It's just like just replace the slipstream drive. Yeah.
Yeah, just it's way too unpredictable to make it work as an actual solution. But of course, they've got to try because it's Voyager and their whole mission is to get home. But what if they tried it on Enterprise? Like they're making
damn.
a massive leap. Okay, they have the Warp 5 ship. That's great. Now there's suddenly a brand new technology where they could possibly go anywhere in the blink of an eye.
I don't know. I feel like it's on Enterprise. There's so much emphasis on the Warp 5 engine that it would feel like after even experimenting with the idea of the spore drive, it makes the Warp 5 engine feel insignificant.
Yeah, I'm thinking if they were to do this, it would have to be latter seasons. Maybe, like, is it some sort of consequence of the Xindi arc where somebody made a massive discovery and they think that's going to be an advantage going forward?
I think personally, I'd rather see it in TNG as a one-off episode because there was a horrible episode, I can't remember the name of it, where it established that they couldn't go beyond Warp 6.
Oh, right, because it's destroying the environment. I think that was called Force
Subspace.
of Nature.
Yeah, it was damaging subspace.
Right.
And it was their environmental episode. It was their going green episode.
Yes.
And it was so freaking stupid because they, like, so many times, like when there was emergency, they're just like, they had to insert this line every single time. They're like, we have permission from Starfleet to exceed warp limits. And I'm just like, oh, go screw yourself. This is so stupid.
It didn't even matter.
And then
a while.
Voyager came out and they're just like, oh yeah, the engines go up so that way it doesn't hurt subspace. I'm just like, oh God.
Right. 9.975. Let's go.
So that's what I would say is that like there's so many episodes within TNG about experimenting with different kind of warp drives, like the Traveler episode, the I can't remember the something wave episode where like there was one where it was like some gravimetric wave that the ship would ride. Instead of having warp engines, it would just like ride it like a magic carpet. There was that episode. That's what it looked like too.
Now you got me thinking First Contact.
And then there's Force of Nature, like we talked about. So I feel like this would be a great avenue for TNG to experiment one more time and then say like, nope, can't do it. Spore drive doesn't work. It damages the mycelial network.
This
Not
is what
ethical.
Geordi and Data have been doing in their spare time for a little while, trying to develop like theoretically, is this possible? And then they have some sort of breakthrough. I'm actually stealing that from Threshold. Oh my God. And
Yeah.
Neelix pours them a little more coffee and then oh my gosh, this could actually happen. I really could see that happening though. And as a one-off, it's a little disappointing just because the spore drive has been such a useful thing in Discovery. They're using it to its potential. But as a TNG episode, yeah, it would just be a one-off episode.
It would absolutely just be a one-off episode.
And so they'd have to do this really fast, do the test run, and then find out, oh, this destroys the species in this realm of space. Oh, we can't do that. Darn,
Yeah.
shucky darn.
Shucky darn, yeah. Exactly. I think that's what would happen with the spore drive. And I think
Yeah.
we don't really need to talk about the Klingon War because we've seen a Klingon War in Deep Space Nine.
Right, as well as the original series. So, okay, that's done. Check.
Check.
Okay. What about Tilly?
Tilly. Well, we have Wesley.
She's a much better Wesley. I feel like she's one of the more versatile characters that could go on really any of the shows as just the young, bright, eager, but sometimes awkward ensign.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point. I think she's pretty universal that she would fit on any show. I think she would replace Wesley on TNG. And we could if we wanted to graft the character, I think that's who we would graft it onto, or maybe a Nog character on Deep Space Nine, that kind of thing. But I feel like maybe every show but Voyager.
What about Harry? What if she replaced him?
I think Harry. I don't think Harry gets enough credit because yes, he was a young ensign, but he was also very professional. Like he was good at at his job. He didn't have very many personal relationship issues or anything like that. He was Harry. He didn't get promoted. But with Tilly, I feel like there's so much more going on where she's not an ensign yet. Like at least she wasn't. I can't remember now.
She's an ensign as of the second season. She got promoted at the very end of season 1.
That's right. I always forget that. So like I would like to see that storyline. I would like to see a cadet kind of transition into an ensign on the storyline like we did with Wesley. And that's why I think like TOS, you could totally see it.
Sure. Deep
Space Nine, I could see it on Enterprise where they're just like, okay, you're going to be the first, like you got the highest score on the test. And so you're going to be the first ensign on a first cadet on a Warp 5 ship. And, I think that's where I'd like to see her the most is Enterprise.
That is interesting, and I think maybe the way things are running at that particular point in time is a little more suited to her personality. Because as you pointed out with Harry, Tilly isn't quite as professional. She has to catch herself when she drops the F-bomb, for instance.
Oh my gosh.
But she's wicked smart.
Mm-hmm.
And she just needs to believe in herself a little more, and she's working on it.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm one of those people who I like Tilly, but at the same time, I feel like there's certain times when I'm like, oh, okay, reel it in.
She kind of has that over-exuberance that can get a little grating after a little while, but I think we're going to see her mellow out as time goes by. We're going to see her become a more mature person. That's going to be fun.
Yes.
But she's not going to lose her spirit, and it's just going to be a more tempered Tilly, and I'm going to love her for that.
You're 100% right. I think that is definitely going to be her arc. She's going to get more professional. She's going to get a little older, a little wiser.
Right. She's going to live up to her potential. She will be a captain someday.
So are we agreeing that if we were grafting, it would be Wesley, and if we were popping her in, it would be Enterprise?
Honestly, I could see either scenario working on TNG. She could replace Wesley. She could also just be Sylvia Tilly as a cadet, kind of shadowing the main staff on the Enterprise and learning from it, some sort of weird internship.
I think I would disagree with that one.
Really?
I feel like Enterprise would have a little bit more patience with her personality, because with TNG, I think that they would treat her like Barclay. They would just be like, "Oh my God, okay, you're gonna get Tilly
right.
today."
Geordi would hate Tilly.
Riker would hate Tilly. I think Troy would hate Tilly. I think Data would be the only one who would find her fascinating. Can you imagine Worf working with Tilly? My gosh.
Oh wow. Now that's a thought. I don't know. Maybe I didn't think this through, but
hey, this is just one man's opinion. I mean,
but at the same time, they might hate her. That juxtaposition might be interesting because she's not quite a Barclay type, but they are going to find her annoying.
Yeah.
So you're right. Enterprise it is. That is going to be the better fit.
Because I could see Phlox really getting along with Tilly. I could see Trip getting along with Tilly.
Yes.
I could see Hoshi and Mayweather. Yeah, I could see them getting along with
the
Tilly. Conversations
in the mess hall, they'd be fantastic.
I think Archer and T'Pol would probably be the hardest ones to get along with Tilly.
Archer's going to be hard on her just to try and instill that professionalism aspect, I think. And then T'Pol is just going to shake her head. I don't even know what to do with you.
Yeah, don't talk to me. Float away.
Yeah, poof, be gone. Yeah, totally. But I can definitely see her nerding out with Trip on engineering feats. Absolutely. Having conversations with Hoshi and Phlox. I mean, going to Phlox for advice, those two. Oh, that's going to be some of the best stuff in the series. Yes, please.
So who do we move on to next? Would it be Stamets?
Let's do Stamets. That's who I was thinking of.
This one is tough because Stamets is kind of a jackass.
He can be, yeah.
They definitely presented him that way in season 1. He's definitely mellowed since season 2. Like, he's not
Yeah.
so much of a jackass in season 2, but I remember his introduction in season 1, and I'm just like, do they want the audience to like him? I mean,
Right.
this guy is a huge jerk.
He really can be. He's quite abrasive. That said, he knows the ship better than anybody. Where is he going to be a really good fit? Would he be a good counterpart, some foil to Chief O'Brien on the station?
Ooh, yeah, I could see that happening where he's on the station, and it's kind of like a Saru Jadzia situation where it'd be Chief and Stamets, where
Maybe, what if Stamets is the chief engineer of the Defiant?
okay,
But those two will have to intermingle a lot, just being on
I
the
could see that.
station and whatnot. They have to work together, but O'Brien cannot stand this guy because he is such a jackass.
I like that. I like that a lot. He's the chief engineer of the Defiant. But at the same token though, I think we need people are going to give us craft, because Stamets is a scientist. He's not an engineer.
True.
And
what about
because
the
he's-
cloaking technology? What if he's a specialist in that? Maybe we adjust that a little bit.
I think we could. I don't think that gives him enough to do, because I really liked your idea of making him chief engineer of the Defiant. But the thing is that he's not a chief engineer of warp
Yeah.
drive, and so if we wanted to just pop him in, we kind of need to keep him as a scientist. And so I feel like it'd be the Saru situation all over again. And I don't.
Yeah, we can't put everybody on DS9 doing science.
What if he was in? Because you can't replace. What if he was in Voyager, and he's another scientist in Voyager, and because we don't have a lot of abrasive people in Voyager.
No, not really.
I mean, we have B'Elanna, who would get hot-headed sometimes, but she definitely mellowed. We had Seven, so I think that may be the situation. So, like, if we were gonna plop him in, he would kind of replace Seven, but we could graft him onto Seven too.
Yes, as that kind of abrasive, cold character. Definitely. You nailed that.
I think if we plopped him into Voyager, we would go back and forth with Seven and him. Where instead, because you know how B'Elanna and Seven had a very antagonistic relationship?
Yeah.
I think that would replace that. We'd keep B'Elanna, of course, but the main antagonist relationship would be between Stamets and Seven.
But if those two are both on the ship, is Seven running astrometrics, and then what is Stamets doing?
I think he could, if she was running astrometrics, I think he would be kind of the Wildman character.
Interesting. Just this moody, difficult, doesn't play well with others scientist.
Yeah, I think he would just be the science, because like once Seven came around, we stopped seeing Wildman, and she was supposed to be in the science division, and we never really got that main bridge officer that we saw every episode that was a scientist. So I think Stamets could easily fill that void as himself and keep 7 of 9, and she would just be running astrometrics and doing the Borg stuff. And maybe he was like B'Elanna and absolutely hated all this Borg crap that she brought in. And
Hey, maybe so,
Yeah.
maybe so. Maybe we write a different backstory for him where he, like, Culber can't come with him because we can't have a doctor on Voyager. We have already got one. What if he lost Hugh to something like Wolf 359, sort of like a Jennifer Sisko kind of thing? And so there's a lot of resentment about the Borg. And then all of a sudden, this 7 of 9 character comes in and, like, who do you think you are?
Love it. And that's why Stamets didn't like Michael at first, is because she was the mutineer, and she was the reason why his ship, his science program on the Discovery, got co-opted to be put into a war instead of just research.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. That works.
I think that works.
Okay. So, next.
We don't have too terribly much next, because
Not
we don't
really.
have that many main characters. Like, here's the thing, is that like the bridge crew on Discovery is like, you have one half, it's pretty much split into half. You have the main people, and then you have people that we spend 30 seconds with, if we're lucky, every episode.
Right. I mean, I think really, real quick, Culber could be Nurse Ogawa,
Yeah, oh my gosh, perfect.
right? And then we're talking about his relationship with Paul. We're getting some gay representation on TNG, which we should have had.
I think in this situation, Paul would be a civilian.
Well, we don't know much about Paul. We don't have to. Sort of like how Nurse Ogawa, she's just with some dude that we hear little snippets of conversation about, but we don't
Right.
ever see.
I think that's even better. Yeah.
But yeah. So there's kind of that little bit of a bridge where we're talking about same-sex couples, but we're not going to go see them kiss or anything. We're not going to get too, crazy with 90s TV just because we hadn't really broken those barriers
it's
down
90s,
yet.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of Crusher and a Colbert together. I think they would make a great team.
That would be amazing. Maybe
be
even
so great.
better than Ogawa. Hate to say. As much as I
Hate
like
to
the
say.
Nurse Ogawa, but I love Hugh Colbert. I love that man.
Yeah, I think that's great. I don't even want to think about anything else. I think that's
Okay.
that's good.
That's
perfect.
done. All right. And I mean, yeah, the Klingons, we can't really go into the Vok and type of thing. What about Ash Tyler?
Oh yeah. Ooh.
Now, this is a difficult one just because, I mean, he is connected to Vok in this really weird, twisted way. At this point in our Discovery Watch, he is a creature. He is neither really of these two. He's his own being. He's kind of a Tuvix character. I've heard some people reference on Twitter. He needs to figure out who he is. Do we put him in a Section 31 plot on DS9?
I think, and stay with me, I think this would be a one-off story for TOS.
Think so? You know what I'm thinking? Oh my gosh, that made a light bulb go off. What if it's Star Trek 6? And this is a really desperate part of General Chang and his gang of people to infiltrate Starfleet?
So instead of the I'm totally blanking. It's my favorite Star Trek movie, and I can't remember the character's name.
Who are you thinking of?
The female Vulcan.
Valeris.
Not Savick. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Was supposed to be Savick, and then
Yeah,
Kirstie Alley said no.
Lieutenant not Savick.
Right.
Yeah, and so I think instead of her character, it would be Ash Tyler.
With the complexity of this used to be a Klingon, and they altered him so down to the bone to be a human that it was pretty much untraceable.
And I think that's why my brain went to TOS first, is because we saw that storyline in Trouble with Tribbles.
Uh-huh.
Where it was a Klingon disguised as a human. But
That's
this would be
true.
much more complex. And would that be too redundant then?
Well, I mean, with kind of this weird twist, I mean, the lengths that they're willing to go to, I feel like that fits more with Star Trek 6. Just how deep does your hatred run? You are willing to give your entire self to do it.
I feel like that would dominate the movie, though. Which is fine. Which is fine.
I don't think it would dominate. I think it would be a real, just kind of shocker twist. Oh, wow. We're not going to get into too much detail on it. We're not going to really get into the ins and outs of Vok and Ash. Just they did this? They did this? All right, wow. Okay, this goes even further than we thought they'd ever go.
In your version of Undiscovered Country, is he unaware of it then?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think he would. I think it would be the same as Discovery. I think he's unaware of it and he gets triggered and he has no idea what's going on. And he keeps and that's why they have a hard time finding him in Discovery.
Yeah.
And that's why, because he doesn't even know that he is the mole.
Right. So, okay, he's the one who goes over onto the Klingon ship and commits the assassinations and doesn't even know it was him.
Yeah, exactly.
And so then when Spock leads everybody on the mystery chase to figure out who the killer was, and it leads to him, and he was like, what?
And maybe even Spock mind melds with him and doesn't see anything.
Oh, actually, I was thinking that would be the one way to figure it out. But if he's so unaware, I mean, that would be kind of the way, though, is you'd have to go that far deep into his consciousness to go into these weird hidden memories. Nobody's anticipating a mind meld with this guy.
Well, okay, let me take it. Okay, so in the Undiscovered Country, I'm having a hard time speaking. We see him with Valeris, and he has one hand on her head.
Yeah.
And he's not getting enough, and then he uses two hands. This may sound stupid, and let me know if this sounds stupid, but what if the first time, it points to Ash, he just uses one hand and he's like, no, he's just Ash. He's not guilty. But then more evidence as the movie goes on goes to Ash. And Spock is just like, okay, let me try this again. And Kirk's like, what's the point? You've already melded with him. He's like, I need to go deeper. And then he puts both hands on him and he goes even deeper and we see what he sees and we see Voq.
Would that be a little redundant? That's my only concern.
Totally possible. Yes, it depends on how they do it, and it also might be a hint of lying to the audience. I don't know.
That might make an interesting dynamic though, where we all the evidence is pointing to Ash. And so we think, well, come on, guys, this has got to be your person. And then Spock says, nah, he's clean. So then we think, well, who could it be then? And so then we as an audience, in our heads, we're trying to turn somewhere else and we can't find a new direction on who we think the killer is. Yeah. But then it really was him all along. That's a kind of a cool twist.
Yeah, like that. I think that's the thing. I think that would work. Yeah. And you're right. I don't think it would have to dominate the episode. I think you're right.
Yeah, that reverse psychology really kind of would be a nice little twister.
What about Georgiou?
Oh, hey.
Let's keep her storyline the way that it is. Like, okay, so there
Wait,
is
which one?
The not Emperor Georgiou.
Okay.
So Philippa Georgiou Prime. So what storyline would be interesting where we start with Georgiou for the first episode, but then she dies and we have to bring in a new captain? Would that work in TNG? Would that work in Voyager? Would that work in Deep Space Nine? Would that be in TOS? Would it be like, oh my God, Pike is gone. Now Georgiou is gone. Who the hell are we going to get? And Kirk goes, I have an idea.
Flashbacks to Star Trek 09. I love it. I could see it working on Voyager.
So maybe Janeway would be the first officer and Georgiou dies.
And then Janeway has to step up. We've done scenarios where that happens. That's totally how Janeway becomes the captain.
So So that's what would happen if we transplanted her. What if we grafted her? Well, we can't graft her because she'd die.
Well, yeah. And the thing is with the Emperor, we can't.
No.
That really, TOS would be the easiest thing for Mirror Mirror. But
DS9 had mirror episodes too. So.
That's true. I suppose she might fit there, but then the whole thing with Section 31... they're so setting up for the spin-off. At this point, I just kind of want to see where that goes and leave it be. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not excited for that spin-off, but I'm sure it'll be great.
I don't know how I feel about it either, but I'm willing to give it a chance, just like with Discovery. It was never the show that I would have said, yeah, let's do that. But there's times when Discovery really surprises me. So, got to go in with an open mind.
Okay, so I think that's the only way that we could make Philippa work is if we put her, I think that's the best way is put her in Voyager. She dies with the caretaker. Janeway steps in and takes over.
Yeah.
Cool.
There we go. Anybody else you want to cover before we wrap the show up?
One thing that we forgot to mention is that this idea, and you have to forgive our memories, this idea was presented to us via Twitter, but we cannot find the tweet. We cannot find the individual who suggested this show topic. So we very much apologize if you've been listening to this episode and you're just like, hey, I didn't get a mention. What the heck, Tristan and Shar? We do apologize, but if you could email us or tweet us again, say, hey, raise your hand, it was me. We will definitely mention you on the next show.
Yes, it's our fault. We suck. It's just so far back in our mentions at this point, we couldn't find it as we were just about to start the show. So please let us know who you are and let's give you the credit you deserve.
Absolutely. And as we talked about before, make sure to go to thenerdparty.com. If you want to write us an email, you can do that by going to thenerdparty.com/contact. Select Punch It from the drop-down menu, fill out the form. It'll send us an email. Or you can find us personally on Twitter. You can find me at @TheInsaneRobin.
You can find me at Oh the Profanity.
And you can find us all over social media as a network by searching the Nerd Party on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. You can find us, or just by going to thenerdparty.com. Now, next week, I'm excited because no matter what we talk about, it's going to be great, it's going to be entertaining, it's going to be fun, and we're going to punch it.
Ready for warp, sir. Let's punch it.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.